Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network.
If you like listening to Simblified, you must listen to other IVM productions like TFG, The Fan Garage, which gives you a daily sports fix of cricket, badminton, Indian football, and even fantasy cricket. Listen to it on any of the podcasting apps or on IVM's podcast app as well. Hello and welcome to Simblified, the show where everything is not made up and the points rarely matter. But so here we are with another episode of Simplified, and usually what we try to do is bring to you a whole bunch of complex topics,
things that happen around the world.
Yes, and dumb them down so that we can understand them before you do. This time we have someone who is far brighter and has more expertise in his field, and even though the company that he comes from is mostly an expletive and no employees can introduce it to their own parents, called All India Bakchod. And we have the head writer of All India Bakchod, Girish Narayandass. Hello, Girish.
Hello, hi guys.
A name that has become very popular of late because, finally writers are getting the recognition that they deserve. Back in the day, I always used to feel bad that the music director never used to get credit. It's always Kumar Sanu that
all the cult guys who used to follow all the movies would remember all music director names.
Yeah.
If you know music director names, then you're a cult fellow.
It's like you remember the guys whose name comes on Photoshop. Naren. Sorry for that, Girish.
Yes.
This is just the way we are. Girish, welcome to the show, man. We're so happy to have you over here.
Hey, glad to be here.
Yeah. First question: what is it that you do at AIB?
So I'm one of the head writers at AIB. It's me along with Devaya. We head the YouTube team right now. And that's about it. It's a very short, sweet thing. That's about it.
So when you say YouTube teams, I'm just curious. What are the other writing teams that you have at AIB?
So no, actually, well, that's about it. So initially, what happened? Okay. In terms of writing, we have the YouTube team. That earlier there was a very clear-cut sort of divide between the branded work that we would get and the sketches.
Yeah.
But that didn't last long at all because it sort of merged because we soon realized that it's writing at the end of the day, and we are writing sketches, we are having brand integrations into them, and we're also making branded videos, and it's just all the writers then started working on everything together. So we have one one writing team that looks into everything. It sketches, branded content, everything.
Okay. And how big is this team? I mean, you say it's not big,
I think
if you have to think,
I say it's not big because you're looking for writers. So as long as you're looking, it's not big.
Sorry, you're at allindiabakchod.in.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, I got that.
That's what it is. Right now, I think we have nine writers, including.
That's big. That's fairly big. Yeah. That's fairly big.
So that's what we do.
That's pretty interesting, man. So, a question that I've always had is, how did you manage to get into this? How does one... I mean, a lot of people would say, oh, wow, being an employee at AIB must be like a dream job. We won't get into that aspect right now, but, how does one go... how did you get into this?
In public domain, all we know about you is mechanical engineering, 53%.
Correct, yeah.
So after graduating from MICA, of course.
MICA was after I worked as an engineer for a year and a half. So I got into AIB. What happened was I used to work at this agency called CLA. I was a
Creativeland.
Creativeland Asia.
Yeah, I think I've seen some Cafe Cuba.
Right, exactly. I was handling that brand. So I was at CLA. I was heading a team over there. So while I was working there, I was working with so one of the people in our team who worked there shortly, Chintan Ruparel, who's also your who's the founder of TTT, Terribly Tiny Divisions.
Yes.
So he and I are also good friends. We worked together at CLA for a short while, and Tanmay was looking out for writers at that point of time. They had just started their advertising wing. They wanted to start that, which was AIB Vigyapanthi. They just wanted to float that. It just started to start that, and they were looking for writers then. So they were consciously seeking out people from advertising at that point. So he reached out to Chintan, and Chintan suggested my name, and that's how I got in touch with Tanmay. So I was the first full-time writer, so to speak.
Oh, nice.
To join there for the advertising wing.
So nice. why were you hired? What did you have writing experience before?
Yeah, so I was already in advertising for Actually, there's a funny story. I was already in advertising for about 6 years, 5 to 6 years. So Tanmay just met me, and I remember meeting him for the first time. I think there was some comedy show. I think Bilbo was performing. He was down, and he met me, and he just sort of assumed that I'm working for him. Okay, he just assumed. Okay, he meets me and he's like, "हाँ एक brief है करना है." I'm like, okay, hi, I'm Girish. Right? And then he sends me the mail and he's like, okay, let's get working. And I was anyway looking for a break from advertising at that point. थोड़ा burnout हो गया था. I can हिंदी में
perfectly.
Just because I'm
थोड़ा burnout हो गया था उस time पे, तो मुझे लगा कि okay, fine, let me take a break from advertising for a bit.
Right.
Okay, because I was always like, I love advertising. It's not that I don't. But I was just like, it's been a while. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll just take a crack at it. It's fine. So like, diya usne, and I was anyway looking to move out, just relax for a bit. He assumed, so I was on my way to Chintan's wedding, and Chintan was getting married at that point. I was and I'm at the airport. I land at Delhi, and I get Tanmay's call, and Tanmay's like, "Acha, socha kya us brief ke?"
I think it's a great way of hiring people, right?
Yeah.
Just assume they will for you.
So I'm like, yaar, matlab, main socha to nahi, because I am still not part letter anything you want to meet, like talk, right? So then I just rattled off a few insights, and he was like, oh, okay, cool, and we just, and I'm there at the airport and I'm brainstorming with him, and like, what am I doing? Right? ये क्या चालू है? क्यों मैं बात कर रहा हूँ? कुछ तो लेंस का कुछ तो ब्रांड था, and I'm like, हाँ, लोगों को प्रॉब्लम होता है, चश्मा ये होता है, something, and he's like, हाँ, ये कर सकते हैं, हम like, हाँ, ये कर सकते हैं, cool, okay, bye, phone रख दिया. Then the next day, and he had also mentioned in the mail that if you can give this, then this a shot, also let me know. So this one weekend I sat and I wrote two sketches, and I just mailed it to him for the other 2 briefs. And that night, then he called me after reading that at some 3 a.m. He calls me and he's like, अच्छा चल आजा, ये मैं पढ़ा, बहुत funny लगा मेरे को, बहुत funny लगा, तू आजा ऐसा, मिलते final करते इसको. I'm like, okay, sure. So that's how it happened. Yeah. So right now what we have, like, to get people on board, we have a copy test that we give to everyone. We usually look for people who have some experience in writing.
Right.
But not necessarily comedy?
Not necessarily comedy. Comedy होगा तो अच्छा है, पर ऐसा कुछ जरूरी नहीं है. We're also looking for copywriters. We're looking for senior writers. Anyone who has a grip on how ideas work, how writing works, that's great. Because at least I personally believe that it can be, like, you can learn on the job. Like, if you have some potential, हो जाएगा वो.
Right.
क्योंकि मैंने comedy लिखा नहीं था पहले.
Right.
So at least from personal experience, I feel कि possible है और कुछ नहीं.
Sure.
Yeah.
What goes behind a typical day? Like, is there a typical day?
There's never a typical day. Because the thing is, we sort of we always have a list of brands that we're working on.
Sure.
And also on the side, there's a list of things that we're working for ourselves. Like, say, something topical or something that we feel that, has not been spoken about much, right? Anything while during the discussion, kuch agar nikalta hai, to like, oh, haan, iske upar kuch ho sakta hai. So there are 2 lists that we are simultaneously sort of attacking. So that way, there's never a typical day, because during that process what happens is, okay, something might get shelved, something that goes through, so you never know really what happens. But yeah, once we lock on something, then the writing process starts, and it's just typical day is usually just us telling each other ki yaar ye kya bol raha hai, please bahar nikal. It's that, because we're constantly bouncing jokes and ideas to each other, right? So it's always a very high energy writers room where we make sure that things are moving fast. So yeah, that's what it is usually, and most of the time I think abhi aajkal typical day goes with playing with the HR's dog. Champ ek aata hai, but there's Khamba's dog also.
Yeah.
So the common area is just like these 2 dogs like fighting and playing, and वहाँ तो काम होता ही नहीं है, जो होता है अंदर side में जो rooms में होता है. Right. So yeah, that's what it is.
I remember Tanmay saying something, I think this was during the coalition, where he said that I always feel sad when I hear a loud laugh coming from the writer's room, because I know that a joke has been cracked which will never be allowed to go outside the office.
That is true.
Basically. Yeah, so during the censorship section that we had during coalition.
Because the thing is, about the joke that do get used or is in the script, उसमें laugh नहीं आता है, because that is after so much thinking that we at the end we should go, हाँ ठीक है डाल देते हैं, क्या लगता है तेरे को, हाँ ये चल जाएगा इस पे मेरे को लगता है आ जाएगा. फिर रीडिंग के टाइम पे when we read it out to the office, we get everyone, we read it out, and then when we get a laugh, then there is no like jubilation because it's like इतना पूरा रात बैठ के इतना सोचा है इस पे कि अभी जब वो हो जाता है, लाफ मिल जाता है, we're like हाँ काम कर गया.
Yeah, it's like the humor nichod has come out.
हाँ, काम हो गया, amazing, चलो okay now so this we don't have to worry about. So usually we do laugh at things that we know we can't use.
Someday there will be a director's cut of the engineering and then the world will know.
Here I have to tell you one thing, is the quality of the scripting was amazing. I mean, if our Hindi movie industry had been 0.01 as good as that, we would have been winning many more whatever.
One thing Srikeit and I have...
No, my question is this. Yeah. So what you've been describing is almost like a chaotic process. And the end process is really good. So I mean it's really good. So is there some overseeing hand which edits it, or do you is it
No, there's definitely method to all this madness. Aisa nahi hai. I was just maybe trying to be funny. So the thing is, once we lock on an idea, then we just know that it has to be constant rewriting. We write till the day of the shoot. Okay. So that's what. On the day of the shoot.
So you're not very different from advertising.
Critically evaluate, rewrite.
Yeah. We rewrite, and anything that we read out to our friends, we read out to the office. Something's not working, we chuck it. So there's a lot of hard work that goes in that sense. And then till the day of the shoot, even while discussing with the actors, sometimes the actors go, because we also work with great actors who are also most of them writers. So what happens is they go yaar ye aise ho sakta hai. And there, so you're constantly on our feet thinking ki haan ye ho sakta hai, fine, so let's do that take also. And usually that take comes through and becomes part of the sketch. So there is method in the sense that we know once an idea is locked, then what the process is, the whole scripting process is. Even ideation wise, it's we know once a brief comes in ki abhi we have to spend X number of hours ideating on this, right? It's just that within that it becomes chaotic because that's the nature of the whole thing.
That's usually the best way to do it, because how is everyone, unless many people contribute, you're not going to get the freshness. The same guy keeps writing the same thing.
Absolutely.
He's going to be jaded.
At this point, let's take a little break, guys. Yes. Watch an AIB video, come back and
be right back.
Hello, I'm Sanjeev.
And I'm Tushar.
And this is the Rotomouth Podcast, a weekly show where we talk about motors and motoring in India. Cars, bikes, rickshaws, buses, friends, familiars, and time pass.
Find us every week on the IVM Podcast app or any other app you might use. Stuck in traffic? Put on Rotomouth. Taking a while in the loo? Rotomouth is there for you.
Dude, that sounded particularly disgusting.
Thank you. But seriously, catch Rotomouth every week.
Welcome back to part 2 of this special podcast with Girish Narayandass, who's the head writer, one of the head writers rather, of popular comedy collective AIB. One thing I wanted to ask you, Girish, is, okay, both Srikeit and I have been fans of AIB sketches for a long time, and one thing that's always stood out for us is the sort of attention to detail. And when we say attention to detail, it's not so much about the dialogues, but all the peripheral stuff that can actually be missed out on. Like, for example,
the Easter eggs.
Almost the Easter eggs which you have to pause and say, hey, did you see that poster that was there behind what the group discussion conductor was saying? So is this conscious? I mean,
I think that Unoffended, one of the funniest things was the scroll in Unoffended. That scroll
it's like you have to almost ignore the dialogues, watch it again and just read all that. So, I mean, at the end of the day, how many people actually end up seeing that? How much effort? I mean, I'm sure all that takes a lot of effort and thinking through. So, in your heads, is it worth it, or is it just an artistic?
Absolutely, it's absolutely worth it. And you see the result because it's there in the comments. Right? And that's why we keep doing it again and again. It's that feedback that we get. It's instant result, right? You see the return immediately. So if you do it once and we see people have been and on YouTube, if you see people go people paste the time link and you can timestamp directly go timestamps, and they do that. They've done it for every sketch that has these moments. So it is very conscious.
Even Honest Engineering had something on the blackboard, right?
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of stuff on the blackboard.
We sat down and we'd spent hours writing that thing that ek line करके लिखेंगे वो क्या हो सकता है, and then but it's there only for 2 seconds, but you can trust the audience to stop, pause it, and just sort of and see it. In fact, unoffended. I remember you mentioned the scroll, right? That was actually one of my first briefs, as like when I had just come, I joined because the thing was already shot.
Yeah.
Right, and the scroll was added later. Right.
Oh, okay.
So I remember like my initial days, I was like, हाँ इसके लिए कुछ scroll चाहिए और एक 5 line चाहिए ऐसा बस 5 line. So I was scrolling through my Facebook update, seeing if there's anything that was half decent, I can just pitch it.
Damn cool. But so one question that I wanted to ask, and some of the work that AIB has done, I mean, while being tremendously entertaining, they've also raised some very important issues, like from a social perspective, through humor. Like one of my favorite sketches is the harassment through the ages sketch. Which actually brought out this entire aspect of how there's so much misogyny and so much, normalization of like harassment and eve teasing, so to speak, in the Hindi movie industry. And so, is there like, how does this thought process come to be? Like, are these like hot button topics that you want to touch on, or is it something that just comes out of a conversation or something like that?
Both.
Okay.
It's both. It's sometimes it comes out of a conversation, and at most times I think we sit and discuss consciously like what we can talk about. But it's a mix of both, absolutely.
And does it like, I mean, when you're thinking of these topics and when you're working on them, so is there some kind of editorial control? Is there some kind of that, okay, how do we sensitively handle this? Or is there some kind of editorial control that comes over at that point?
While writing? No, not necessarily.
Okay.
It's just like how you mentioned earlier, right? When the big laugh and said something that we can't use. We know the reasons why we can't use certain things. Why we can't say certain things. Those lists, I think everyone knows. वो जो थोड़ी चीजें हैं जो कोई नहीं बोल सकता, वो सबको पता है. तो उस पे वो खुद का मतलब वो निकालने के लिए रूम में बोल देते हैं. It's out of the system, so we can get on with it. Apart from that, no, there's no filtering as such.
And when it comes to like, I mean, like you talked about AIB Vigyapanti earlier, which was a separate wing, and now you're saying it's no longer like a...
No, we still have it, but it's the writers are common, you can say.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, when it comes to like this brand integration angle, how much of a traditional agency structure do you follow? Like, is there a brief? Are there brand guidelines to be used? And how does it play with your, so to speak, chaotic method of writing? And how does that factor in some way? Like, because I saw with Honest Engineering, there was a Swiggy tie-in at some place, and so stuff like that. So how does that come into play, and does that feature in the writing process itself, or is it something that's added later?
So when brands come to us, we tell them that this is what we can do for you. It's as simple as that.
Okay, so you set the terms.
We don't set the terms, so to speak. Also, the writing isn't chaotic. It's just there are multiple drafts.
Okay.
But I don't really think it's chaotic in that sense. It's just a management thing that we have to face because of the time that goes into writing these scripts. But the method is very well there. But yeah, in terms of like what we do for brands, they come to us and be like, hey, this is what we want to say. And we'd be like, okay, great, this is how you can say it. This is here's a sketch idea, and here's something that we can do for you. And it's pretty much as simple as that.
Achha. And have you ever faced like a lot of pushback and like we wanted to come this way, and that's interfered with your creative process, so to speak?
From the brands?
Yeah.
Not really. Because they do place a lot of trust in us in terms of at least when it comes to content.
Right.
I think ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा उनका यही होता है कि ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा कुछ बोलते हैं कि गाली मत दो. That's it, right? For certain content.
Yeah.
Or they would be like, stay away from religion or things like that.
I think the entire ecosystem evolved to such a place where brands know what to expect.
Very different from how ad agencies work, right?
Yeah.
You have clients basically, I don't know.
I work with Ogilvy, and there are multiple brands that we work with, and there are some really, really strict editorial controls, so to speak, where we have like the brand guidelines come into play, and there is a certain tone of the brand, and there's a certain way that the brand has to be expressed. And it's really interesting to see how when clients, the same clients almost, may go to you or may go to an AIB, they actually are okay with it being kind of mixed in with your type of tone and language rather than stay in their own tone and language, because that's the expectation, how it changes between the two.
And I think the reason for that is what an advertising agency does is supposed to toe the brand line, whereas this is the more casuals on Friday sort of.
Yeah, it's brand integration. So it's integrated into AIB's content.
Yeah.
Right. That's what it is.
It's not an ad for.
It's not an ad for the brand.
It's like you're setting the narrative and they're coming into it rather than them.
So it'll never be like, oh, this is what the brand had to say about these issues. Brand was. It was a part of the story. It was like that. And
one more thing was about the topicality of things that you were talking about. I mean, typically, if you want to talk about like your demonetization sketch or something like that. So what is more important for you guys? Like the intensity of the joke or like just getting it out on time?
Getting it out on time. Okay, in terms of, because it has to come out.
Yeah, the topicality, because it's relevant now and it's not going to be relevant like 10 days later maybe.
Yeah, I think that does become challenging, and we can't compromise on the intensity of the joke. So then we'll just keep what we think is really funny. Then what happens is then we won't stick to be hard pressed on so much as to how long it should be.
Right.
If we know that if we have 7 pages funny, then fine 7.
Like the Apple spoof was amazing. That came out I think on the same day.
Yeah. That was the social media team. Yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Girish, one thing I wanted to ask you probably, how much when you write the script and the final output, how different is that in your head? Because when you're writing, obviously you picture it in a certain way.
Right.
We, for example, see the final output and then work backwards to think, hey, okay, the script was probably written like this or something.
Right.
But in your head, you probably had Rahul breaking the guitar in one way and how it ended up was a different. I mean, what's the delta, as it were?
It's not very different. Like visually,
visually, yeah.
No, because we do think visual. Even when we're writing, right? It's never like, it's not dialogue. It's very important that when you're writing these sketches, we think of what visually how it's going to be.
Sure.
Because if you don't do that, then it's not going to be interesting anyway. Right? It's important that writers think visually. So it's not very different. It's the jokes do evolve and they get better with multiple drafts. But we always, with every draft, know how it's going to look.
It's going to look. A reasonable idea. 80-90% of it, you've got it down.
Yeah, because there are restrictions sometimes that, okay, ये एक room में shoot करना है, या ये location restriction है, या वहाँ पर क्या हो सकता है. जैसे college है, right? College में we know that, okay, we'll get a corridor for sure. We'll get staircases for sure. So we write scenes around that.
Right.
So it is important that you think visually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's very insightful actually, because when you are telling stories, you are conveying pictures through words, and the objective is to recreate the picture in somebody else's mind. So you're taking one step further and actually creating the pictures for But you need to be clear what you're creating.
Yeah, so, like for instance, engineering, right? Engineering, the placement sketch, the mass recruiter scene.
Yeah.
Right? The whole thing of the students lying on the table as vegetables is a visual joke. We have to think it through.
Sure.
Like, तो वो subject के साथ तो वो visual joke है वैसा. Right? So even the music video was very deliberately like, okay, it has to be Green Day. So the moment you go, that's the reference, and you know how it's going to look like.
Sure.
And and also finally, a lot of us, especially those who have been following AIB right from the beginning, and like Chuck
when
and
they used to do podcasts.
Yeah, when they started off as a podcast. All India Bakchod was a podcast spoofed on All India Radio, and we've seen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's. Sorry, I thought you were genuinely surprised. Sorry. Okay, but yeah, so what we've seen, Tanmay, Khamba, Rohan Joshi, all of these guys as stand-up comedians, right? Now, as AIB has evolved, like you said, into a YouTube, like in a content collective almost. How do you see your relationship, you and the writers' relationship with Tanmay, Khamba, Rohan Joshi, Ashish Shakya, and all of these guys?
Relationship, like how?
Almost like what roles do they play versus what roles do you play?
Their roles are the guiding roles. We've all that we learn here is from them. I used to not write comedy, as I said before, and I've learned here. I've learned a lot, right? So their role is to just come and just guide us, sort of tell us that what direction to take, how to, give us valuable feedback as to, okay, this is, if it's working, if it's not working, how can it be made better, and that. So their roles are essential now to just be a guiding force and just help us grow.
Okay. Do you write with a cast in mind, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like for placements, for instance, we knew Rahul was going to play. Yeah, even before. I think while the script started, we were like, Rahul is going to be overachiever, Varun is going to be.
And you speak to these guys and lock those in before writing, or because there's a big gamble then, right? The
thing is, they've been working with us for a while now, so we know that
Yeah.
we'll be able to like get them on board. Like then we also adjust. Like if they're not available on a certain date, then we know कि एक हफ्ते बाद या बीच में 3-4 दिन ऊपर नीचे, we can get them on board. Yeah.
And I think lastly, what's next for AIB? I mean, we always want to know what the next video and stuff is going to be, but are we going to see anything else?
Like formats, maybe a different format and different kind of stuff.
We are experimenting with a few formats, but I don't know if I should say because it's not sure right now. You know, अगर नहीं हुआ तो, but क्योंकि we do experiment a lot in terms of our ideation, like कि क्या अलग-अलग हम 10 चीजें और कर सकते हैं formats में. Having said that, a few sketches are being written right now.
Awesome.
Which will come out soon.
And,
awesome.
And then also there's stuff like On Air with AIB and there's so any other different kind of like longer form shows and stuff like that are being planned.
Shows, I think Kamba's working on a show. I think that's out. His show is gonna come out soon. There's one more show I think that's been worked on, and apart from that, that On Air was a separate team this year.
Right.
It was not the in-house writing team. It was headed by Rohan and Ashish, right? So yeah, I don't know if apart from On Air, if there's something else like On Air, no. Right now, ऐसा नहीं है. It's still that.
Awesome, but as long as good content keeps coming out, who's complaining?
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Girish. I think now we'll all see AIB sketches with a different light. Almost.
Definitely.
Thanks so much for coming on. This was very insightful, and
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And we will see you guys next time. So bye.
Bye.
एक्सक्यूज मी भैया, एक्सक्यूज मी.
बोलिए मैडम.
मेन्यू में क्या है?
मेन्यू में सीन अनसीन है, पॉडकास्ट है, ऑन कोर्स है, साइरस है, मेड इन इंडिया, रीडिस्कवरी प्रोजेक्ट, एम्पावरिंग सीरीज, सेक्स वैक्स है, IVM लाइक्स है, सिंप्लीफाइड है, कीपिंग इट क्वियर है, थिंग्स एंड डेस्टिनेशंस है, माय नेबर जकरबर्ग है और द फैन गराज है. आपको क्या चाहिए?
एक बार रिपीट कर देंगे क्या?
रिपीट नहीं करता हम. आप जाओ IVMpodcast.com पे और सुनो ये सब, या फिर डाउनलोड करो उनका ऐप, सब आपकी उंगलियों पे.